Hello there, this is Anna Amelia from Northeast Animal Rights doing another one of our Saturday Spotlight interviews. And today we're delighted to welcome along Sadie Jade, animal advocate and author as well. So we're going to be talking about
Hello.
her fantastic book later on, but welcome Sadie and thank you very much for agreeing to do this for us.
No, thanks for having me on. It's really nice to be here.
So we're going to go straight into the questions I ask everyone. The first one, which is, can you tell me about your vegan journey, please? And how did you get involved in activism and kind of how do you sort of like see your preferred methods of activism?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think it's probably similar to a lot of people in the kind of animal rights vegan movement. It was, I'd eaten meat and dairy all of my life, was raised that way. And then I started to make the connection a bit more between the animals that I loved and cared for and the animals that I ate, and kind of thinking there's no real difference between the two. So I went on that sort of journey really. I was that kid that was always rescuing animals and always looking after the animals, and I'm still that adult at parties that's on the floor talking to the dog and the cat. So yeah, I kind of decided, do you know what? I can't love some and eat some. Like it
Yeah.
just didn't meet up. My values just wouldn't allow it. So I then decided to go vegetarian. And most vegans who have not been vegan their whole life will tell you that it snowballs, and then you kind of go, well, I'm thinking about cows in the dairy industry and chickens in the egg industry, and then before you know it, you're fully vegan. So, but there
Yeah.
was one real pivotal moment for me that I can pinpoint in my childhood. And it was when I was walking through the town centre with my mum. I must have been about 9 or 10, and there was a group of activists out on the streets, and it was an anti-vivisection stand, and they had big posters sort of draped over the front of the table of monkeys being experimented on. And it just hit me so deep of how could anyone want to do this to these beautiful animals?
Yeah.
And I think something from that stayed with me always. it
Yeah.
it just really really moved me. And I think that's why there's all different, we might talk a bit more about types of activism later, but there's definitely a place for all the different forms of activism,
Yeah.
because that planted a seed in my mind at a very young age, and that
Yeah.
didn't come to fruition until I was in my 20s. But
Yeah.
it was definitely a really pivotal moment, I think, for me
Yeah.
in my vegan journey.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, but it was the graphic imagery which kind of which planted that seed in you because and you talking about the different types of activism. Um, because obviously we work together on quite a lot of educational stuff, but we also support other groups who do direct action or protest, protesting action, that sort of thing. But there is definitely a place for that. Um, imagery, because it does kind of strike a chord with people who are a bit more open-minded and a bit more, have the empathy with animals. So how did you get into activism, and how do you see your preferred method of activism?
Yeah, I think you're right. And that whole thing around imagery, that's been really relevant so my husband and I have co-founded a vegan network in the council that we work for.
Yeah.
And there's recently been a discussion among members about what's too graphic, because
Mm.
2/3 of our membership don't identify as vegan, but they share
Yeah.
a lot of values with
Yeah.
ethical veganism. So some of them aren't ready to see that imagery or don't
Mm.
want to, and we all come at it, we all arrive at veganism through different means. But yeah, I think for me, I got into activism because once you if you feel that passionately about something, especially the injustice of what's happening to
Yeah.
animals, the idea of then doing nothing to try and proactively stop that is really frustrating. So you kind of want to do as much as you can. And
Yeah.
i I think there's a part of me that thinks about my circle of influence and my circle of concern, and my circle of concern around animal rights is certainly bigger
Yeah.
than my circle of influence is all of us. But as an individual, we've all got so much power to make a
Yeah.
difference for animals.
Mm.
And one person can make huge waves. And I think
Mm.
it's just, I just felt like I had to do something. I
Mm.
couldn't sit by and think
Mm.
about all the neglected, mistreated and abused and exploited animals,
Yeah.
and yeah, and not take any action for that. And my activism has really changed over the years, really,
Yeah.
really changed.
So what sort of activism did you start with?
I started doing outreach, street
Mm.
demos,
Yeah.
Cube of Truth,
Yeah.
and getting out there with the TV screens and talking to
Yeah.
the public and
Yeah.
handing out leaflets.
Yeah.
And it's, hats off to everyone who does this work, because it is
Yeah.
hard graft.
Yeah.
It is really hard graft.
Yeah.
And that really took its toll on me after a
Yeah.
while. And
Yeah.
so I kind of took a step back and thought to myself, where do my strengths lie? And what
Yeah.
am I really passionate about?
Mm.
And for me, my strengths were in talking to people.
Yeah.
I'm a really effective communicator, but I also love writing. And so
Mm.
I kind of thought, how can I develop more in those areas to take the
Yeah.
pressure off some of that frontline stuff?
Yeah.
And so I still kept an element of that front line. So I've been a educational speaker for Animal Aid for, I
Yeah.
think, going on 7 years now.
Yeah.
And so I still go out into high schools and
Mm.
talk to students about ethical veganism and vivisection and,
Mm.
the impact of eating animals on the planet and all that stuff. But it's a
Mm.
very different environment to what it is when
Yeah.
you're out in the town
Yeah.
centre talking to people on the street. So it's definitely changed, and I've tried my hand at digital content creation, which is just not my forte at all. Like, give me pen and paper, or give me something to write, express
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
creatively, fine. But when it comes to digital stuff,
Mm.
I'm sure it
Yeah.
hates me. I'm fairly sure.
I think that's, I mean, that's kind of like one of the ways we got to know each other, because you are a school speaker for Animal Aid, and so am I, and there's a couple of members of our group are as well, and obviously through the council's animal protection charter, trying to get more people involved with that. And I know that obviously people who are watching this won't realise that you and Saffron and myself are the kind of the main people behind the council's animal protection charter. We do actually have other people who help us, like VJ, who helps us with a lot of the graphics and stuff. But in the main, it's us kind of driving it. And you did mention at the start there about working with the council, with your council, with the network. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about that as well, and how you decided you were going to set that up, and how, kind of how it's maybe changed, but maybe progressed over the years?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're very generous there, Anna. You are absolutely the driving force between Council's Animal Protection Charter. But yeah, it's something that I'm really proud to be involved in, and I can't wait to see it develop more. But with my work, so I work in local government, as does my husband, and we've been very passionate about bringing ethical veganism into that workplace environment, especially in local government, where there's the potential to have an impact on so many things. So we co-founded a vegan staff network, so it's by staff for staff, and it's centered around ethical veganism being a belief, a protected characteristic, a belief system under the Equalities Act. And yeah, it's just gone from strength to strength. Like I say, we've got over 200 members now,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
a huge number of those aren't vegans. They are people who are interested in the kind of stuff that surrounds ethical veganism. We've got some really planet
Yeah.
conscious people. We've
Yeah.
got people who are really passionate about sustainability, and
Uh,
yeah, it's just grown. And
yeah.
we've managed to, in the time since, so we've had our fifth birthday this year. We're going to
Mm.
have a good party later on in October. And in that time, we've managed to mentor some other local authorities to start up their own initiatives. And I'm in the process of drafting some guidance for
Yeah.
public sector organisations so that they themselves can set
Mhm.
up a vegan initiative and just reuse everything that we've done here in Suffolk. So
Yeah.
things like our terms of reference and
Mm.
the way that we operate, our
Mm.
structure. We've moved to having a board of co-chairs that run the
Mm.
network, because I don't like the idea of a kind of a
Yeah.
hierarchical
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really want it to be four members, by
Mm.
members, four members. So we've
Yeah.
moved to having a board of co-chairs,
Yeah.
and that seems to work really well. So all of that blueprint that we've created
Mm.
and the logo and everything, I'm just
Mm.
packaging it up so that other councils or other public sector organizations
Yeah.
can do the same. And we've just kind of made a link with the civil service vegan network as well, who do
Yeah.
amazing work. So
Yeah.
hopefully together we'll be able to
Yeah.
expand our horizons.
It's interesting to hear you talk about it, because it's almost like a secret underground network of lots and
Yeah.
lots of people doing some really good work. I mean, you talked about
Yeah.
your council network, and kind of how we came into the council's animal protection charter work was through a different route as well. And I
Yeah.
remember back in the early days, maybe a few years ago, when we were talking about this, like the three of us and some other members who are not so involved now, we talked about the right name to call us. And
Mm.
people will not understand the amount of sort of soul searching we did to come across the name Council's Animal Protection Charter, because we didn't want it to be, we wanted it to be rights based rather than welfare, and but
Yeah.
also to encompass all those different things that you're talking about,
Yeah.
to kind of get as many people into it as possible. Yeah.
It's a highly political
Yeah.
topic,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And you're right, everything that, it feels a bit underground, doesn't it? Like there's all of these people doing incredible work
Yeah,
in the animal rights movement, and most of them aren't visible. Like
yeah,
they're all out there doing things to try and make the
mm,
world a better place for animals, and they're
yeah,
really not seen at all. You come
mm,
across everyday heroes all the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
So yeah, I think social media is helping with that, because we're
yeah,
now starting to see the work of a lot of these people. But yeah, a
yeah,
lot of them are unsung heroes. But
yeah,
yeah, with councils, it is a very political environment, and myself, I'm a local government officer, so I have to remain
yeah,
politically neutral. I have
yeah,
to. It's a bit the same as what you'd expect a police officer or a teacher.
yeah,
You'd expect them to not be trying to influence the political arena as such in their
yeah,
work role.
mhm,
But what we do as a staff network is things like we increase the vegan options at
mhm,
our campus building. So we've got around 5,000 staff.
yeah,
And some of the other things that we've achieved, like we've recently, just to try and dispel the myth that vegans hate farmers, we've actually done a really good collaboration with a local farmer recently, where we've planted, I think they totaled it up to nearly 1,000, or no, it was just over 1,000 new trees on his land,
right,
sort of all
wow, that's,
hedgerow trees.
yeah,
So we got a really good big group of people together, and we did a volunteering day,
yeah,
and we've had huge impact, right down to we helped co-write the climate emergency, or the climate change
mhm,
e-learning for all council staff. That's a mandatory
mhm,
module, and
mhm,
within that there is talk about the food emissions and the impact of
mhm,
the food that you eat on the environment.
mhm,
So we're able to kind of subtly
mhm,
get those messages in there,
yeah,
which are all scientifically correct.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
no, and we haven't had to mention vegan at all in some of
yeah,
those things. It's
yeah,
just, well, actually, from an inclusivity perspective, or from a climate perspective,
yeah,
you should be putting these things
doing,
into your
yeah,
e-learning packages
yeah,
and into your
yeah,
restaurants and that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
yeah, it's subtle, but it's
yeah.
big.
It's there, yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So let's go on to your fabulous book now as well, which I'm going to show. I mean, there's quite a few animal rights books out there, and they're all kind of. I mean, some of them are really really academic with lots of research in them, and there are a couple of sort of vegan journals out there, but they're not kind of they're nothing like this. I mean, the vegan journals I've looked
Yeah.
at. I mean, I've seen them in the kind of like places like Phoenix and Newcastle, but they're more kind of like writing about it's just a traditional journey, but a journal, should I say, like a diary. But this one's actually got some really, really good information. I'm just going to hold this so people can see this properly. Okay, but I do absolutely love it because I mean, obviously, this is aimed at presumably new vegans or people who are thinking about it. So maybe if somebody's thinking about doing this for Veganuary, it's absolutely spot on. It's a really, really good tool to work with alongside Veganuary, or to like a good Christmas present. Or just, I mean, to be honest, generally for anybody throughout the year as well, really. But I'm just kind of like thinking when this video is going to go out, it's going to be, really, really good opportunity for people to buy this for the vegan in your life, because people are going to say we don't know what to buy that vegan, so this to me is the perfect present.
Thanks.
And I love the way that it's kind of, it's not I know we always get called preachy, and people, and I prefer to say we're educating people rather than preaching, but this is very factual. The first part of it is very, very factual. It's basically sticking to the facts, not coming away from them, not shying away from them, and giving people the reality, but in a really accessible way. So how
Mm.
did you decide, I mean, why did you decide to write it first of all, and kind of how did you decide to write it in the way that you're writing it? What kind of like processes did you go through with your thinking and your research and everything?
Yeah, sure. So when I first went vegan, I found it overwhelming, the amount of information that's out there, especially if you're vegan from a animal rights perspective.
Yeah,
It's not just you're going plant-based for
yeah,
dietary or health reasons or whatever. And it expands into everything, doesn't it? The
yeah,
clothes you eat, the clothes you wear, the food you eat, the
yeah,
places that you visit, it's everything. And so I felt really overwhelmed. And back at that time, like 8+ years ago, there wasn't one place that I
yeah,
could go. I mean, there's so many amazing resources now. It's great.
mm,
But this is everything that I wanted when I first went vegan. And I love stationery. So for me, it was a natural thing to put that together in a book. But interestingly, and not many people know this, the I don't think I've maybe ever shared this in any of my interviews, but the book started out as a zine. So
yeah,
over the years, my husband and I have been to so many gigs, and some of the venues that we've been to, or some of the bands that we've been to see, especially those with more of a punk kind of background, zines are really big in that on that punk scene. And I really loved the way that they brought together art, activism, that rebellion, anarchy, all together in this
Yeah.
really beautiful type of zine, and it gets messages across really well. And so I thought, do you know what? I'm going to make a zine and I'm going to make it about ethical veganism. And so I started putting it together as a zine. And my mum, my mum and I would sit there and we'd fold up bits of paper and figure out
Yeah.
what bits, the writing has to go on to be that place in the zine.
Yeah.
And then I'd sit around my friend Matt and V's house and be cutting things out, and I'd be sticking them in. And then I realized I've got too much to go in a zine. Like, this is never going to fit.
Yeah.
And sort of overlaid with that, in my work life, in my professional job, I've done a lot of, I've been really fortunate. I've worked alongside I worked for and then alongside an executive business coach, Kim Knights, and I loved her techniques, the way that she coached people, and I picked up a lot of that, and I now lead my teams in a very coaching style, which is that people have the answers.
Yeah.
You might have to mentor them a bit, but actually the answers are usually within them. So
Yeah.
I kind of rolled all of that up into the vegan lifestyle journal. So it's designed to be quite bite-sized, because our attention spans are
Yeah.
terrible now. Like, we don't want
Yeah.
reams and reams of information. We want it really
Yeah.
punchy.
Yeah.
So I thought punchy information followed by journal prompts,
Yeah.
which get to the heart of what's important to the person who's reading it.
Yeah.
And but it then puts the onus on them to make the changes that they want to make
Yeah.
without overwhelming them with so much
Yeah.
information. So that's kind of the essence of where it came from,
Yeah.
and it just developed and turned into a book.
I mean, I think what attracts me to it, apart from obviously it's a book that which you wrote, and obviously I know you want to support you. It's kind of the book that I would be attracted to if I saw it on the shelves, because it's not a thick book. It's thick but not thick enough. But also the lovely kind of like the graphics and everything. It's very sort of
Yeah,
like visually friendly. Um,
has to be
and
beautiful.
apart from the fact it's an award-winning one as well, which is brilliant.
Yes.
Yes, so congratulations. But
Thank you.
yet you said that our attention span is much, because of social media, presumably it's much shorter now, and people do prefer things in bite size. A bite size kind of like like time skills to read things.
Yeah.
It's a good one where I can sit in front, kind of switch the television off and read a little bit, and then read a little bit more, do a little bit filling in a little bit more. So I've really enjoyed it. I'm kind of to take my time with it because I'm enjoying it so much. But
Amazing.
where can people get this book from?
So the book is available in loads of places. Ideally, through my website, sadiejade.com would be the
Right.
best place.
Yeah.
But you can get it on Amazon, you can get it in
Oh,
Waterstones. There's a
right.
number of bookshops that now stock it. So
Right.
but also some really good places, especially for your viewership.
Yeah.
Animal Justice Project, Animal Aid, and Viva all
Oh,
stock it as well. So if you want
right.
to buy a
Brilliant.
copy and
Yeah.
support those organisations,
Yeah.
that's a great place to do so.
Yeah, so they're probably the best ones really, because if you're doing it through sadiejade.com, you're getting all of the proceeds and not kind of like paying a third party. But the other ones, charity ones, are good because the charity's benefiting.
They
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got mine. I think I got mine from your link from sadiejade.com. Yeah. So I'll certainly be recommending. I'll be writing a review on it as well, because it's just been an absolute breath of fresh air.
Amazing. Thank you.
And kind of everything that I wish had been there when I was a vegan, because I remember that feeling of overwhelming kind of like confusion about what was out there
There's
and
just so
wanting to do
much.
something. Yeah.
There's just so much. And also, when you come at ethical veganism, you're usually feeling either upset about
Yeah.
something. You've arrived at that point
Mm.
through, for my husband, it was his health. He
Yeah.
wanted to improve his health, and I think he had high cholesterol. This was
Yeah.
before we met. But,
Yeah.
his reason for arriving there was health, and then it developed into
Mm.
animal rights.
Mm.
And but everyone comes at it from a
Yeah.
slightly different angle, but usually when you arrive there, you're feeling overwhelmed or upset or
Yeah.
frustrated or
Mm.
lost around
Mm.
something. So
Yeah.
yeah, it can be a lot. So I just wanted to make it as easy as possible and as beautiful
Yeah.
as possible, because
Yeah, well, you've
patients
certainly
need it.
achieved that. I mean, it's very accessible, and it's a beautiful piece of work. So
Thank you.
so more power to you. We're coming to the end of our time together, and I know you've got a very, very busy day. I mean, obviously you're still working full time and fitting all of these amazing things in as well.
I'm
So
trying.
yeah, so can you? So what's next for you anyway?
Well, I I think at some point I will write more. I love to
Mm,
write. I do lots of kind of guest blogs and articles and pieces and things like that.
mm,
The most kind of relevant thing that's coming up for me is I'm going to be a panelist at one of the Veg Fest events,
Yeah.
the Vegan Party Conference, but I think that will have passed by the time this goes out. So yeah, just getting out and about, meeting lots of lovely people, and hopefully inspiring people to be active for animals in their own ways.
Yeah, I think it's important that people can kind of, you know, like you said right at the start about using your skills, like working out what your skills are and using those to the best effect for animals, being the best animal advocate you possibly can be.
There's a whole section that came out of the Vegan Lifestyle Journal. So there is a chapter in there around activism, because I feel like activism is a really important part of an ethical vegan lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you know, it doesn't have to be street activism. It can be sharing food with work colleagues, or it can, you know, it can be a number of things that are from subtle to really, really high impact. So I wanted activism to be in the journal, but there's a whole load of stuff, especially from a coaching perspective, of how to bring that out of people in the best way possible, that I took out and have parked somewhere else. So I think maybe if there's a book two, it will be activism related.
It sounds like there's a book two, book two and book three possibly.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the conference as well. What we'll do is hopefully the conference will be recorded, so there'll be a link. So I'll put the link on under this video as well, so people can watch this one and then go watch the you're on the panel as well, which will be brilliant. Because I know you'll be absolutely fantastic in that as well.
Thank you.
So we're going to sign off now. So thank you very much, Sadie, for joining us today. Really appreciate you giving up your time. And just a last time to plug this book, please buy this book. It's absolutely brilliant. And support support Sadie, should I say, and everything that she's doing with her work.
Do you know,
with the
funny,
council.
Anna, that's JD is
JD.
So our friends, my husband's name is Jack, and our friends call us JD.
JD. I must have known. It's just I talk too quick. I talk too quick, and everything just combines. So
thanks so much, Anna. It's been really lovely talking to you. I really appreciate you having me on.
No, you're very, very welcome. You're very welcome. So I'm going to sign off now. So this is Anna Malia from Northeast Animal Rights talking to Sadie Jade. And thank you very much for everybody for watching, and we'll catch you very soon. But bye for now.